Yes?
Hello.
It's
hello.
open. It's open.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Come on in, my friend.
Hey, Grandma.
Hi.
Hello. Mwah.
Oh. Come in.
Hey.
My name is Evan Kleinman. I was born in Poland, February 23rd, 1925, in Sędziszów, Poland.
And Grandma, what about you?
I'm Miriam Kleinman. I was born in Poland, Lublin, in June the 20th, 1926.
We met after the war in Landsberg am Lech. This was a DP camp. We came to New York on March 23rd, 1949.
1939 to 1945.
Oh, we got through terrible
Mine,
things. I was in the camps and in the ghettos, and I was a little girl. And,
No food. Every day, some people got killed. Thank God we survived.
My name is Evan Kleinman. I'm a filmmaker and a grandson of Holocaust survivors. For years now, I've dedicated my life to telling stories through the use of visual images. But I have yet to tell the most miraculous story I've ever heard, the one which is the foundation of my life. I grew up in a suburban middle-class family. I've lived a comfortable and safe life. I've never experienced persecution or prejudice. But my grandparents spent their adolescence in labor and concentration camps. They were both the only surviving members of their families. After the war, they came to New York, built a life, and here we are, the Kleinman family. To spend years of their lives waking up every day in the middle of the most destructive genocide in human existence, how do you survive something like this? I try to imagine what it must have been like for them. To stand in line during a selection process, wondering if this could be your final moment. It gives me strength, because they survived in an environment where the most familiar feeling was hunger and the most common sight was death. If they were able to carry on each and every day like this, then certainly I can endure any obstacle that presents itself to me. As strength filters out, sadness circulates my mind, because my relatives have no photos to remember their faces, no grave sites to visit, no remnants to know of their existence. Then the sobering feeling of obligation sets in as my consciousness returns to its comfortable reality. To talk about something so painful is difficult, but present questions and past memories are all that's left. And amidst the destruction, our family lives on. So I've decided to travel to Poland, the birthplace of my grandparents, and home to my family for generations. I'm not sure what I'm looking for, or what remains. All I know is, it's time to leave a remnant that tells the world, we are still here.
I never want to go back to Poland.
How do you feel about me going?
This is up to you.
Are you curious at all about what's in Sędziszów today?
A cemetery, destroyed synagogues. What's there to see? I never want to go back.
It's a miracle what I got through, thank God. In the war started in 39, you know, another way I was a little girl. They took us to the camps. It was painful, painful.
What do you think about us going to Poland?
You want to go? I don't know. I don't have a desire to go, you know, because I don't have nobody there.
Okay.
So what I should do now?
Blow it out, that's your decision.
We'll help you blow out the candles.
Oh.
Make a wish.
Oh.
You see, my grandparents are of a special breed of people. They are survivors. They endured the worst that mankind can do, and yet they were able to survive, rebuild, and regenerate. So what does Holocaust survival mean but the awesome spectacle of life triumphing over annihilation? They hold the key to something. I'm just not sure what that something is yet.
Growing up as a child of Holocaust survivors, I knew that my parents were distinctive, and I knew that I personally was somewhat distinctive because I was born in a displaced persons camp. A lot of it didn't hit home until one day my father, he was sent a photo from a cousin of his parents. And I still remember that he spent the whole weekend in bed. I had never seen my father cry before.
Dad and Max, remember when you got this photo?
Oh yeah? I was so excited I got this picture. That's the only one picture I have. That's why I hung it up here near my bed, so I could see him every day.
I remember asking my father if he had lost faith in God. He said, no, I hadn't lost faith in God, I lost faith in humanity. I feel that my life is a bonus because I've been given it's not even a second chance, a first chance of life. I feel that I want to make the most of it. As an executive of a Jewish federation, I'm able to combine my professional career with my own personal strivings in terms of trying to make a big difference within the Jewish community, but also try to make a big difference in society as a whole.
Happy Hanukkah, Grandma. You happy to have your family all together?
What?
You happy to have your family all
Yes,
together?
we're going to make a whole family picture later.
I remember being in the living room because I was a little girl, and she told me that it was very horrible to be in the camps if you were a pretty girl, and it was bad if you were an ugly girl. They used to kick them, and she said, you know what would happen to the pretty girls. She said it was best to be a plain girl. It was best in the camps to be a girl that did not stand out. I felt a loss when I was growing up because I didn't have any grandparents and I didn't have any aunts and uncles. I'm thankful that I have all these wonderful relatives now. I think it's a miracle.
This is the fourth generation of Kleinman. Fourth Kleinman generation, right? Say hello.
I hope that Marley gets a chance to really know them because they've been through so much and she's so much she can learn from them. Even though they've lost everyone from their past, there's still a future for the family.
My grandfather has a tattoo on his arm, and it has the letters KL on it. After I'd learned that my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, the true weight of the fact of it became very apparent when I saw the letters on his arm.
I was named after my great aunt, my grandfather's sister. Her name was Chaya Bela. Even though that's my Hebrew name, nobody calls me by that name except for my grandfather. I'm 24 now, and I've already outlived her by so many years. She died when she was 16. Grandpa always tells amazing stories about her, how she was so beautiful, how everyone loved her so much, and I definitely feel very connected to her.
The fact that they survived it and they went on to have a family, and I wouldn't be here without it. It's just like a sort of sick pride.
They're very warm and Hamisha people. They're very open and accepting and loving. Even though I'm their daughter-in-law, they treat me like a daughter.
I've known my grandparents are Holocaust survivors ever since I was a young child, but my grandparents never talked about their experiences with us, and I never felt comfortable to bring something up that would cause them pain. But when I was 13, they were both interviewed for the USC Shoah Foundation Institute, and that's when it really hit home. Exactly what my grandparents had gone through.
The Germans surrounded the shul.
Your shul?
Yes, in the city, of course, in St. Joseph, and they took out 42 Jews. They beat them and they shot them all.
How do you know they beat them and shot them?
They took young Jewish people to bury the people. I knew all the names who they killed.
The hills with the dead people, you know, with shoes, with all the things.
You knew they're burning people?
Yes, I saw them. They throw them in, they burn them.
You saw
I
that?
saw with my own eyes.
My mother got sick in the ghetto.
Right away she got sick?
After a few months, you know, she died.
And your mother and your sister were in that train?
And father.
And your father?
Yes, yes.
What happened to them?
They took him to Belgium. Nobody came back from Belgium.
During the war, my grandparents lived up to a responsibility, and that responsibility was to live and survive. Even though I may live in a completely different time and a completely different circumstance, the responsibility to live and survive still remains the same. So how do I live up to my responsibility?
My brother's name was Leip, and he was 2 years younger than me. He loved to play soccer. He was a very good student, and he was together with me at the camp, and he lasted only 2 months. He got sick on a virus. 7 people died, included him, and we bury him on the cemetery in Sandishof.
So we are traveling, a family of 4, to Englewood, New Jersey, to pick up a stone that we had designed for Evan Kleinman, Grandpa's brother, that we're going to be laying in the cemetery when we go to Poland, to Szeniszew, where he's buried.
I think it's going to be extremely meaningful and emotional for Grandpa Eli. It's something that I think probably all his life he wished he could have done for him. And now, 60 some odd years later, we're going back and making sure that his brother is remembered.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, God.
Oh, yeah. Do they have it?
We're traveling all the way to Poland with this.
Oh, wow.
The Jewish cemetery in Szeniszew was completely destroyed. All we can see now is a monument erected after the war to memorialize 400 Jews that were massacred there by the Nazis. Given the circumstances, my grandfather was not able to place a gravestone for his brother. It may be nearly 70 years later, but we can still give Leib a proper memorial.
When you buried your brother, I mean, you did it yourself, right?
A group of us went together with 2 Polish guards. They took us to a cemetery, and then we went back to the camp.
How old was your brother?
12.
Evan is focusing on the brother because he knows where he's buried. And what about anybody else in the family? Do you know where anybody else is?
No, my sister, my brother, no.
Oh.
I can't believe it.
My goodness, this is heavy.
How are you going to carry this?
In a suitcase.
It's a big job. Thank you very much.
Growing up, I was never raised to feel any kind of connection to Poland. And the only thing ever associated with it was pain and suffering. So just the thought of traveling there carries a lot of weight.
There's a lot of places in the world I'd like to see. Poland is not very high up the list.
I've had very, very little motivation to visit Poland.
The first thing that pops into my mind when I think of Poland, I think my family was nearly destroyed there.
The remnants of my family left there are probably graveyards.
I've been sort of curious to travel to Poland.
It scares the daylights out of me.
I think part of me doesn't want to confront what I would find there.
To go there and to see it, to me, would be not a meaningful exercise.
I'm glad you're going and not me.
I think all I'm likely to find there is...
That's the way I feel. I could be wrong about that.
You know, I don't know. but whatever it is, it would be painful.
If we went back to Shendisher, what would we see there?
According, I don't know nothing. You could see only the place where our house was standing. The place. What else could you see? The cemetery was probably neglected because nobody took care of it for so many years.
I think a Kleinman walking down the street, that's like a sense of victory.
What could I tell you?
By going to Poland, what I really want is to feel connected to my grandparents' stories. I want to walk the ground that they walked, and breathe the air that they breathed. I want these places to be more than just names on a map.
We're leaving for Poland in a little less than a week.
I feel really uncertain about the trip.
It will be a discovery of sorts. It'll be a journey.
It's gonna be a big trip. A big trip.
I'm wondering if the places we're going to see today are going to look so different from how they were then that it could almost be hard to make the connection.
If we don't find much, we may be disappointed. I don't know if people will be friendly to us or unfriendly to us.
I'm willing to explore and take every opportunity to see what we can. Hopefully it will be a worthwhile experience for the whole family.
So if you'll be here, we're going to sit down, we're going to discuss. We have important things to talk about.
Are you wearing your hearing aids?
Yes.
Both of them?
Both.
Okay, good.
But still I don't have to.
Okay, but I just want to make sure you're hearing the best you can hear.
I can't believe our trip is just around the corner. For the past few months, I've been mentally preparing for what I might see and feel. Today is our last attempt before leaving to get all the facts and details straight.
Das ist der Markenstädtel.
Yeah, that's the map of Lubian. Does this look familiar at all, this church? Now, I have a few more pictures.
My grandma doesn't remember many geographic specifics about her hometown Lubian. We showed her some present-day photos that we found on the internet, but they don't seem to be jogging her memory. A part of me is unsure if we've even found the right place.
Think hard.
I'm not sure. No.
You're not sure. You said when the Germans came in, they put gasoline
Yeah.
in the shul.
The school, yeah. And it was a fire, the whole street got burned, you know.
Do you remember the name of the street where the synagogue was?
Oh, goodness.
No.
We will also be visiting 2 other places that are relevant to my grandmother's experience.
What was the address where you were at in Warsaw, in the Warsaw ghetto?
Miller Street. Later, we went to Częstochow. They took us to Częstochow.
Does the name Hasag factory?
Hasag, yeah. The ammunition, you know, what was
Ammunition, they looked over the ammunition,
Yeah.
didn't have holes
It's a
in
mess,
the ammunition.
when it was wrong, they hit us, you know. But I was lucky.
Related to my grandfather's experience, we will be visiting a former labor camp in Mielec, the site of the Rzeszów ghetto, and his hometown of Shendishev, all in the southeastern region of Poland. We've brought a Google map, and he has very precise directions.
Here was our house.
Okay, that's it. That's exactly what we think it is.
There are 3 houses. Ours is the biggest. This one is a very small one, and this one is the short one. Because we built here a warehouse before the war. Behind the house was a big garden. About here was the public school.
Oh, so the public school was on the way to town?
Yes.
Not in town?
Not in town.
That building could still be there?
Yes. The trouble is our furniture I delivered to the school when they confiscated our furniture. Before I came to town, was on the right side a big church, and here is City Hall, put on City Hall. It was a big building.
Yes.
You'll never miss it. This is also the place, unfortunately, where my parents, my father and mother.
It's hard for him to get the words out, but my grandfather is identifying the area next to City Hall where his parents and sister were rounded up and sent to the extermination camp known as Belzec.
Behind the City Hall, maybe 2-3 minutes, or 2 synagogues. The 2 synagogue was born, and then there's the cemetery behind us.
When your brother was buried,
Yeah.
do you have any indication as to where he was buried?
We have the opportunity by going there to memorialize him by placing a stone in his memory.
And this will be something that exists in this place where our family lived for generations that now has no piece of anything to suggest they were ever even there.
I don't think people should die anonymously in this world. I don't think he should be a number. He was a person, and he should be remembered as a person.
When you come to the cemetery, you see the monument. On the left side, my brother's buried.
The monument was built after the war, so how does he know exactly in relation to the monument?
We saw the big hill. On the hill, they put the monument.
What is the big hill? What was that?
Because so many people got shot in one shot. So
That was the mass grave, the big hill.
Today I also brought a surprise for my grandfather. I was able to obtain some archival footage of Shendishev from 1935.
Anything look familiar to you, Dad?
That's the city hall. That's the shul where I belong. That's the public school.
Now, Dad, take a look at these faces.
Maybe it's me.
Yeah, take a look, Dad.
Can't believe this was Santa Show for
Yeah.
you.
1935, when he was living there. Maybe we'll find somebody who remembers you, Dad. Or remembers the Kleinmans.
I doubt.
We'll see, your house could still be there.
I doubt.
It could be. We'll see. Now that we've been able to get some detail on a map, certainly we'll probably find some landmarks that he described today. I have to admit I am excited about seeing that.
Marsz, marsz, Dąbrowski, ziemi włoskiej, do Polski.
As they recall the Polish national anthem, my grandparents drift back to the carefree lives of their childhood, just before their worlds would be turned upside down. It reminds me to cherish the simple joys in life, like being able to sit here with my family, at this table, together.
That's it.
As we arrived in Warsaw, immediately you can tell how much of the city was destroyed during the war. Almost nothing remains, except for a few battered pre-war buildings that seem to be abandoned. Our hotel is right across the street from where the Warsaw Ghetto once stood. Since the ghetto took up a third of the city, it's hard to go anywhere without being in it or in the vicinity of it. It's a strange feeling. Wherever I go, I can't help but feel the ghosts of the past.
My brother, once they came and they said they was looking for men, to work. I remember I was hiding him under the bed, and they was looking, they found him, and they took him away. SS, the German. And he got killed.
You never saw him again?
No, I never saw him again.
Our first night in Warsaw, we had a Shabbos dinner at the Noisig Synagogue, the only synagogue that survived the war. And yes, there are Jews in Poland today. For our first day, we've arranged for a special tour from a Warsaw native.
I'm Małgorzata Ubińska. I live in Warsaw. I am president of Union of Jewish Communities in Poland. When I was 31, I was told that I'm Jewish. My grandmother told me that she's not my real grandmother and that my mother is a Holocaust child saved by her. Of 20th century, every 3 people whom you could meet on the Warsaw street out of 10 were Jewish. So 30%, 30 up to 35%, and in such district like this one was maybe 70-80% Jews.
We're standing right by one of the boundaries of the Warsaw Ghetto. They have a marker along the border right here. Apparently this was one of the major entrances to the ghetto. My grandma, she was here with her brother. She said he was taken away by the SS. That was the last time she ever saw him.
As we crossed over the little marker, where once stood a 10-foot brick wall, it's difficult to imagine the overcrowded streets, the starvation, the desperation of the largest Jewish ghetto in all of Nazi-occupied Europe. And what's even harder to imagine is that my grandmother was one of them.
The only thing that you can see, what reminds the past, are these train tracks. The ghetto monument was built in 1946.
The monument is double-sided. This side represents the pain and suffering, whereas the other side shows a symbol of the Jewish uprising.
The trees must have been planted after the war as well.
At one time, there were people that were starving in these streets, that had typhus in these streets, that couldn't freely walk in and out of this neighborhood like we are doing today. It's almost like we're walking on a human grave. So here we are. Here we are.
Now we are at Mila 18. Nothing originally has remained. We have the monument here, Mordechai Anielewicz, together with 100 other fighters. They had the shelter here and they were found located by Germans, and finally they committed suicide.
You told me when you were in Warsaw Ghetto, you lived on Mila 18?
Mila 18, yes.
That was your address?
Yes, this was the address. You heard about Mila 18, yes.
Although the monument is there to commemorate the fighters of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, we placed stones on it in memory of my grandmother's brother, Hirsch Menachem Rock, who was taken away from the same spot a few years prior. He was 6 years older than my grandmother. She describes him as being very kind and very studious. May he rest in peace. Leaving Warsaw, we watched the urban landscape turn into countryside. I keep thinking about how many of these towns were all once shtetls. Jewish villages where the delicious smell of kugel would have been teeming out the windows. Merchant carriages rolling down unpaved streets. Yiddish being spoken. We will soon be arriving in Lubian, my Grandma Manya's hometown. For the rest of the trip, our guide will be Yurik. He comes highly recommended and has been leading Jewish tours of Poland for 25 years.
So once upon a time, I was in the Warsaw airport. I saw for the first time in Poland fully black dressed man with a long coat, white beard, big hats, approaching us. And he started to talk to me purely Polish language. All right, I was surprised. And he said that he's a travel agent from New York. He would like to arrange a special tour for Hasidic people. The man proposed to me to cooperate. Wait a second, I said. Why me? His answer was very simple. Why not? You know, it's very hard to argue after such answer. Why not?
In was Yom Kippur, they make the fire in the synagogue, shul, in the whole street. They put the benzene, you know. Gasoline. It was such a panic. Everybody took their stuff and went near the water. It was like a lake, you know, across.
So this is the lake.
This is the lake. Where's the church?
Looking out at this quiet little town, it's hard to feel any kind of connection. Partly it's my uncertainty that this is for sure my grandmother's hometown, and any connection I might allow myself to feel could be false. But I'm convinced this is it. It has the same name, the same proximity to neighboring cities. and of course the lake, which she describes in her interview 14 years ago, but today she can no longer clearly recall. Standing here in 2009 makes me think that I asked these questions a little too late. We spent the rest of our time in Lubian trying to locate any existing pre-war structures in hopes that my grandmother might be able to recognize them. Yurik was also able to uncover some old photos to use as a reference.
So they help us to recognize another pictures. This picture here, this is a picture of the former school.
It's hard to see, but the building on the right behind the trees is the school, which still stands today. Just across the street, Yurik identifies another pre-war house.
Yes, the old, typical style,
Right
all
across the
those
street from the school.
decorations, the wooden.
She may remember, who lived right across the street.
Front of the school.
With all the video images that we bring back to show my grandmother, I hope she'll recognize something, so we can be sure that this is indeed her Lubian. That same day, we drove 4 hours south to Czestochowa, where the ruins of the Hasag factory stand.
I was working in ammunition factory. When they found in the box broken bullets, they hit you. When somebody escaped, they picked up 3 and they killed on the spot.
All those are original from that time. Everything here around us. All those buildings are original from before the war.
This place looks surreal, doesn't it? I'd hate to wake up and go to work in a place like this.
Looks like hell.
I met my best friend, Rusha, was lives in friends. We worked together like sisters.
I remembered the story that Grandma told us, that from here she went with Lucia to Bergen-Belsen. And she was not selected to go to Bergen-Belsen, only Lucia was, and she went along with her in order to be with her.
I don't know if there's enough light here.
It feels like we're walking through a horror movie. Without my camera light, it would be pitch black in here.
Come, follow me in. You can come right here. You can come here. Just come here for a moment, then we'll leave.
The only trace of life is the graffiti on the walls. This is where my grandmother was robbed of her childhood. This is where a 4-foot, 11-inch woman was stronger than I will ever have to be.
It's time to roll it.
I find Poland to be a beautiful country. Picturesque landscapes, beautiful architecture, but my feelings towards the country of my ancestry are conflicted. So many of my relatives were murdered here, and seeing anti-Semitic graffiti for the first time is very disturbing. In just a few days we will be in Chędyszew to place a gravestone on the burial site of my grandfather's brother Leib. But today we are in Rzeszów, where an event took place that is nothing short of a miracle.
They took us to Rzeszów. There was 2 ghettos, a east and a west. And the west, the people from Rzeszów worked in factories and everything. In east, where I was, there was no work. So I went over to the west, and I went to the Jewish police. And I said, maybe they have some work for me. And the chief from the Jewish police, he gave me a job. And every day I went from the east to the west. I broke furniture, it was very cold, and I made fire for the elderly people. And would you believe it, I broke one of the closets and I found a golden watch. And I sold this watch and I got money to buy bread and other things.
And now we are entering inside Western Ghetto. So 2 corner buildings are not original, they are post-war. But already going further, on your left-hand side, you can see typical pre-war time construction with the balconies. No signs, no nothing that we are in the ghetto area. You know, even in Warsaw it's something very new. For many years was nothing. Now a little bit more and more. So maybe in the future the same here will be more.
I would have loved to have seen the look on my grandfather's face that day after breaking down the piece of furniture and finding a gold watch. Now that is lucky. We had some luck here today as well.
We went inside the Jewish Historical Archive Center in Zhezhov, and we were able to obtain a copy of Solomon and his wife Neha Rosengarten registration in Zhezhov. Solomon and Neha Rosengarten were aunt and uncle to Eli.
So there are records of my family in Poland. My biggest fear has always been that after my grandparents there will be no remnant that they were ever here. But I'm happy that's not the case.
And we were able to get their parents' names, where they lived, and these are the names of their children. The second paper we were able to obtain is a birth certificate of Neha. We now have some further information about Eli's family and the Rosengarten branch of the family, which is his mother's side of the family.
20 people in Mielec. Their job was to clean the streets. One day, 2 of the 20 escaped. They took out all the 1900 people, and they took 1, 2, 3, 4, every tent they took out.
You know what they did?
They shot him. I was the 11th one.
As you can see, the factory is still active today. In 2007, it was acquired by the American company Sikorsky, who are most known for manufacturing Black Hawk helicopters. Since there are top secret US military operations going on in here, organizing a tour has proven to be a bit complicated.
First small problem, the person you spoke is ill, probably in the hospital. So they are trying now to arrange on the spot something for us.
We were not allowed inside the facility itself, but they agreed to give us a tour of the grounds. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to bring my camera, but our host took some pictures of us.
Aside from the fact that we weren't able to take our own pictures inside the complex, I think it was a very worthwhile visit. You get a sense of the hugeness of it, you know, and how important it must have been, the work that Grandpa did here for the war effort. And that's probably one of the keys to why he survived also, because he was valuable.
My grandfather was here about 1.5 years. He started out working the night shift making wings for German warplanes. But at a certain point, he got a lucky break and was assigned to work in the firehouse. I mentioned this to our host, and he pointed across the street.
We check there's enough sand in the factories for in case there's a fire. They have a fire truck, we have to clean the truck. So I worked with a German, and we went through the hall, and the Polish people were jealous. They said, Jude, Jude. And this German was so good to me. He said, no, that's my friend Elias. He was so good to me. So I was lucky.
I właśnie ten jego dziadek tutaj przeżył dzięki temu, że udało mu się tam w produkcji. I just told them the grandfather's story about he was here exactly because they were interested why you are taking a picture here.
To jest część przedwojenna.
So this section, the whole section, this is a pre-war section. Till exactly this place. To the right, everything new. Is the line, the division between the old building and the new one.
These two
doors
here, the doors are smaller,
yes,
and these two doors are where the fire trucks were when your father worked.
They were not such a big fire trucks like today, much smaller.
I'm sure Grandpa was here on this very same spot.
Our city was the main road between Krakow and Lemberg. They built a highway. They took the German army to the Russian front. So they took the Jews who built the roads.
Sag nicht kein Mal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Himmeln bleiene verstellen blaue Tag. Kommen wird doch unser ausgebänkte Schar. Sveta poigt an unser Trott, mir sennen da.
We arrived in Shendishev that day, equipped with my grandfather's extremely detailed handwritten map.
The location of this school is exactly what Grandpa put it.
We immediately recognized major landmarks from the video footage we saw from 1935. We stopped by the city hall to see if any records exist of my family, but we were told that they were all destroyed during the war. We then headed directly to the Jewish cemetery on the far end of town to find the place where my grandfather buried his brother, whose grave has been unmarked for the past 67 years.
From here you can see the Magen David. The area is overgrown, like you can see, but is a fence, probably here on the side, living there, have a key.
Living right next door to the cemetery, we met Jagoda.
Pewnie państwo chcecie na cmentarz wejść.
No właśnie, prawdopodobnie pani ma klucze.
Tak, tak.
A czy pani cały czas tutaj mieszkała?
Tak. O,
I przed wojną też?
też.
She was living all the time here in Sędziszow, enough elderly woman to remember. She lived as well before the war and exactly here on this place. Now she has a key for the cemetery.
Does she know Kleinman?
Czy pani spotkała się z nazwiskiem, czy pani może pamięta sprzed wojny nazwisko Kleinman?
Jakie?
Kleinman.
Nie przypominam
Nie przypomina sobie. She doesn't remember. She's almost 90 years old. So no idea. She was trying to remember who lived there, but it was pretty far from here.
We expected the cemetery to be in bad shape, but when we entered, the first thing we saw were signs of restoration.
The new ohel on the place of the old one. The ohel was found by the Nissenbaum Foundation, Jewish foundation, helping with the preserving cemeteries, restoring, etc., etc.
I feel like this is the holiest ground I've ever walked on, as if I'm walking on top of a lost civilization. In the distance, we see the monument that was erected just after the war, memorializing 400 Jews that were shot and buried in a mass grave by the Nazis on this very spot in 1942.
The Germans organized 50 wagons with 50 horses. The people who were sick couldn't walk, they threw on the wagons. And those wagons with people went to the cemetery where the Germans killed them all.
We found another stone here, and Dad's wiping it off to see if we can read it.
Here lies a member of the congregation, Moshe Linzer.
We are finding that the cemetery was not completely obliterated. Now with Leib's new monument, that will make 4 total. Can you take the plastic from me, Mom? So you're not allowed to dig up anything in a cemetery by Jewish law, so we brought earth from outside the cemetery and gonna use that as our anchor.
Kommen wir doch unser ausgebenkte Schau. Das Wetter beugt an unser Trott, wir sinnen do. Von grünem Palmenland bis Land von weißen Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Ohne wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wir dort unser Gewurre, unser Mut.
I think it looks really good.
Yes. Leib Kleinman, 1927 to October 1942. Victim of the Holocaust. Devoted son, loving brother.
Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabba, v'amad divrokirutei, v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayet echol Beit Yisrael, v'agola u'vizman kariv, v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei rabba v'vorach, v'olam lol meyomaya.
To the soul of Leib Kleinman and all our beloved who have gone to their eternal home, may their memory endure as inspiration for deeds of charity and goodness in our lives. May their souls thus be bound up in the bond of life. May they rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, Yalko Yisrael, v'imru Amen.
Amen. All I can say is that when the sun was shining, I closed my eyes and I opened up my hands to the sun, and I was just imagining Leib and Eli and Chaya Bela walking in the town and playing in the street and going to school, and I was just imagining their lives as children in this town.
I think that people shouldn't be forgotten, and I'm just happy that we're able to do something where history's not completely erased. While we were exiting, we were approached by another neighbor who was eager to share information with us about the massacre that took place here.
He's saying that it was 20 by 20 people, and they were like 3 machine guns. So after that first group was killed, the next need to cover this one, and still it was possible to see the bodies, but a little bit moving. So all those people were not killed, let's say 100%, they were still alive, maybe very hardly blessed, but anyway.
We spent the rest of the day utilizing my grandfather's map. Where the synagogue was, today is a hospital. The wagon factory where Leib died is no longer there. Another factory was built on the same spot that manufactures car filters. We managed to locate my grandfather's property on the outskirts of town.
My grandfather said his house was right on the intersection of the main street into the town. The cross street went into a different town called Kolbashova. And so we can see right here with the signs that it's exactly this corner.
The 3-family wooden house that my grandfather lived in with his family and the families of his mother's sisters no longer stands. In its place is a 2-story brick house. We knocked on the door, but no one was home. We ended the day at the train station.
From these very tracks, my father's parents and sister were transported to an extermination camp. These very same tracks. So, this is not a pleasant place to be.
You always say that the clanking of trains has always bothered you.
It's true.
Von grünem Palmenland bis Land von weißen Schnee. Wir kommen on mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Ohne wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gewurre, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gewurre, unser Mut.
Before we left, we took a family photo in front of the tracks. The fact that we posed for a photo where my family was meant to be wiped from existence completely blows my mind. This is one of the most powerful moments of my life. We ended our Poland trip as actual tourists in Krakow, a beautiful city that was mostly untouched during the war. We had a farewell dinner with Yurik in the revitalized Jewish section that kind of feels like a Jewish Disneyland.
It's been excellent with the extraordinary service of our able, wonderful and understanding and knowledgeable and patient guide, Yurik. So to you, L'chaim.
And we did it together. That's what's most important.
For your grandparents, 100 years.
To everybody's good health.
I mentioned in the beginning that my grandparents hold the key to something. I have learned that key is resilience. What makes a person powerful is their ability to get up after being knocked down, and so that makes my grandparents the most powerful people I know. Come on in.
What the? It's unbelievable.
How was the trip here?
Wipe your feet.
Beautiful.
Wipe your feet.
How was your trip?
Not bad.
Good.
How are the roads?
Take your coat off. Hi, Shay. Hi, Mom.
It's a cold and snowy day in December. We've been back for a few weeks now, and in that time, I've edited down the 15 hours of footage that we shot to 1 hour, so we can share the experience with the rest of my family. We are also celebrating because it's my mom's birthday and just before Hanukkah. So you know what that means.
So help yourself. We have plenty. I'm not sure.
So you excited to see it, or how do you feel about it? Is it difficult at all, or
No, no.
how come? Like why?
It's not difficult. I mean, you made it, so let's see how you did it.
I mean, are you curious? What's your curiosity?
Of course, I'm very curious.
Because you said you would never want to go back, and then you didn't really care what was there.
Because if I would go there, I would be very upset.
At a country club.
So, Grandma, how do you feel about what you're going to see?
So many years, you know, forgot a lot of things, you know.
Hey, Mom, you remember you went to school?
What?
Do you remember going to school?
I went to public school, yes.
Do you remember the building?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
You'll see.
You'll see.
Ready?
All right, so let's go watch the film.
Okay.
Okay.
While I was in Poland, I explored the depths of what my parents had to go through. I saw places that made me cringe a bit. I never really and fully realized what my parents had to go through and to have persevered and not given up. That says a lot about my parents.
The story feels more real, and we for sure know what's there now.
I feel very privileged that I was part of this trip. I will never forget this trip as long as I live.
My grandparents never imagined they would ever see these places again. I have no idea what their reaction will be. My hope is that they are able to find some closure, just as I have. So I'm sitting right now in front of a fragment of the Warsaw Ghetto Wall.
That's part of the wall. Remember the wall? Yeah.
Seeing a remnant of the Warsaw Ghetto Wall has my grandmother entranced. It is the only thing that remains from when she was there. I can tell it has a strong effect on her, as she stares in silence.
Lubień. Masz tytuł.
Now, take a look.
Take a good
Concentrate
look.
on it.
See if you recognize anything.
Was that your school?
I'm not sure. Don't remember. Masz tytuł.
Do you remember this water?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. I can't believe it.
We found the right Lubień. To see my grandmother light up like that was a beautiful thing to witness.
For the most part, it's dilapidated, abandoned.
Missing a roof and covered in graffiti, my grandmother wasn't able to recognize anything from the Hasag factory, but she recalled the moment with her friend Lucia that she'll never forget.
Lucia, they wanted to take to the concentration camps, Bergen-Belsen. I said I'd go with her.
For whatever reason, my mother did not recognize very much.
The memories have either softened or they've been replaced by so many more current memories.
She did say that she recognized the lake.
It seemed to bring back some happy memories.
I think her present life is more important to her than her past life.
Now it's my grandfather's turn. For a long time, it was not easy for my grandfather to even discuss his experiences during the Holocaust, even though he seems to be at peace with everything now. I hope it's not too difficult for him to see these places again.
Oh, Mielec.
Oh, Mielec.
Since the Sikorsky Corporation completely renovated the entire complex, it only left one building that my grandfather might recognize.
That's the fire department? Yeah. But it was smaller.
They told us it was expanded. They showed us the old part and the new part. So let's watch a drop more.
Is the line, the division between the old building and the new one.
I'm sure Grandpa was here on this very same spot.
Yeah.
Rzeszów.
It's all new buildings. The building we were all bumped. No ceilings, no roofs.
We went inside the Jewish Historical Archive Center in Rzeszów, and we were able to obtain a copy of Zalman and his wife Niha Rosengarten registration in Rzeszów.
My uncle.
Solomon and Niha Rosengarten were aunt and uncle to Eli.
I want my grandparents to know that we stand by them, and that they aren't the only ones that need to remember. We will also never forget, and we will do everything we can so the next generation won't either.
So this is the last part of the video, and this will all be Shendishev.
I remember when we were driving down the main street into Grandpa's town, I knew when we were going to get to the cross street, right where his house was, and I still had this like small thought of hope that possibly the house could still be there. And now we for sure know it's not. It's just not a mystery anymore. We just know it's there.
Look at those roads. We built this road.
You built this road?
Yeah, we built this road.
As we played the footage, the memories continued to pour out of him, as if he had just been there yesterday.
That's the public school where I went. You see the place where the people walking out? This was the town hall where we were all staying before they took us away. See this small road?
Yeah.
The house was next to it, and the whole garden was ours. All few acres.
This is all your land?
All the land where my house was there. I used to plant the vegetables and potatoes in Donetsk. Cemetery. Look how the cemetery looks.
Evan Kleinman.
Can't believe it.
Just unbelievable.
Yiskadavi Yiskadashime Rabba, Yamad Vrakirute, the Amlich Makute, Bachayechon, Ubiomechon, Uchaye, the whole Beit Israel, Bagola of Isman Kariv, Vimru, Amen.
I was grateful that we were able to do that for him. It was very meaningful to him.
And it marked that his brother lived and breathed, and it made a difference.
You okay?
I have no words.
Beautiful.
I don't know how to thank you.
It's been a year since I began filming with my grandparents. The experience has allowed me to spend time with them and really get to know them and their stories. I'm honored to have had this opportunity. I feel so much closer to them, and I've been able to create bonds with people I've never even met. I am 28 years old, and my generation may be one of the last to know someone from this amazing group of people. I've learned that it's okay to cry about what they went through. But tears are not enough. We have to take power from these stories. If the phrase never again holds any bearing, then it's up to us, here and today, to take all the pain and all the suffering and use it as motivation to do something great. How else do you let the world know that you are still here?
Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg. Himmeln bleiene verstellen blaue Tag. Kommen wird doch unser ausgebänkte Schar. Es wird abeugt an unser Trott, wir sinnen da. Kommen wird doch unser ausgebänkte Schar. Es wird abeugt an unser Trott, wir sinnen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis Land von weißen Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Ohne wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gewurre, unser Mut. Und wo gefallen ist ein Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gewurre, unser Mut. Es wird die Morgensonne begilden uns dem Heind, und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind. Nur halb versammeln wird die Sonne und der Kajor, wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Nur halb versammeln wird die Sonne und der Kajor, wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht kein Liedl von a Fegel auf der Frei. Das hat a Volk zwischen Fallen dicke Wind. Das Lied gesungen mit Naganes in die Hand. Das Es hat ein Volk zwischen fallen dicke Welt, das Lied gesungen mit Naganes in die Hand. Das sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst dem letzten Weg, wenn Himmeln bleiene verstellen blaue Tage, kommen wir durch unser ausgebänkte Schor. Sveta pojkt an unser Trat, wir sennen durch. Kommen wir durch unser ausgebänkte Schor. Sveta pojkt an unser Trat, wir sennen durch.
The last minute when I saw my mother, the last minute, she said to me, Eli, I think you're gonna survive. Please remember Cecil Turin in America. Those are her last words. And it was true, it was Cecil Turin, her sister in the United States. There are so many stories I could tell you. Every day was something else.